For some reason, it looks as though we've added everybody in. So just like to welcome everybody here so far. So Aditya's just joined, and we'll just get the slides up on the screen first. So apologies, everybody, but for some reason I must have
Should I
added
share my screen?
everybody in. Yes, if that's all right,
Yeah,
Aditya. And what I'll do
yeah,
is I'll do a little ditty for a little
just
introduction.
yeah. I'll quickly.
But before you do, even as you're doing that, I'll just talk. So thanks everybody for joining this session. This is the first session of 8 for the IMS stream. So welcome everybody. And uh, this session is going to be, this is is a recorded session like they all are. So it's stream 2 session A, and this is the first part of 2 presentations on embracing change, how to move to the IMS catalog, directly and DDL in IMS. So we'd like to welcome our speakers. That's Aditya Srivastava, who is a senior product developer for BMC, and he's been working well over 16 years in mainframe programming, and currently he's BMC Army fast path utilities expert. And then I think he's going to introduce some of this session. Then we'll go over to Nalej,
Yeah,
who is a senior product developer for BMC, and she's IMS Systems Administration Products, and she's got over 12 years experience in mainframe programming. So without further ado, I'll probably hand you over to, in fact, yeah.
yeah.
So can I just say that everybody just for any you cannot, I don't mind people asking during the session, but if you want to do it via chat, then just give questions via chat and I'll ask them, and then at the end we'll open up for questions. So it's over to Aditya. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for the introduction. So good morning, everyone. Uh, I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, my name is Aditya, and I am working with BMC software right now for over 5 years, and prior to that, I have some experience in overall. I have more than 16 years of experience in the mainframe world, and together myself and Snehal will be talking uh, on this topic: embrace change, how to move to IMS catalog directory and DTL in IMS. So this topic, I know that it's kind of talk of the town in the IMS world right now, mostly because of the mandate coming up next year. And uh, so as an IMS contributor, I think everyone should be aware of these topics, and most of our content is something which you might have already read or heard at some place or other. So without investing more time, I'll quickly just go over to the agenda we are going to cover. So the agenda here is basically I'll quickly give some introduction and background on IMS catalog, and directory, and then Snehal will be talking about most of the first session. It's a two different session presentations. Same presentation we'll use for 2 sessions. So in the first part, I'll cover the introduction part, and Snehal will be talking on steps to migrate to IMS managed ACB environment, and she'll also touch upon the fallback consideration. Then in the second part of the session, I'll be covering up on some of the concepts on directory DDL and some of the IMS catalog utilities. Okay, so let's talk about some history of on how catalog was introduced. So we know that earlier the DLI database structure, it has information like DBD, COBOL copybooks, and PLINC include members and PSBs. So what a DBD defines is, it defines a characteristic of a database, and information such as access methods, segments, field, etc. are part of it, right? So most of the time, information for the segment, it was limited to the only few fields, right? And these fields are generally part of the SSA, right? And and those fields are used to define the logical relationships and secondary indexes. Okay. Then another structure was COBOL copybooks, and PLINC include members, right? And the details of those information about these copybooks, and these copybooks will have information about all the other fields basically in general, right? These member details all the field in each database segment, and not just the SSAs. And these are included in the source program when the program is compiled. The third part will be your program specification block or PSB, and that has information like PCBs, sensitive segments, and other fields, sensitive fields, etc. So this particular, I mean, these three types of structures, relay structures, was spread across different, this information. I mean, this complete information was spread across these three different structures. And with the introduction of Java classes to IMS data from GBP as in JMP region, or from a remote system, it required that the metadata should be accessed easily or quickly, basically, right? And to provide this access to metadata, the ACB Live, your application rental block libraries, they were offered as a Java class earlier. Okay. So with this move of making IMS data more widely and easily accessible outside of the mainframe, application programmers needed to have an easy and a consistent access to the metadata. And since IMS version 8, that is long back, this data was provided by using DLI model utility. Okay, it's a very old utility. And what this utility does, what it generates Java class files that contain some static information, static definitions of your database at the point when this utility was run, right? So if you're making some changes to your database, you again have to run this DLI model utility again to create new Java class so those applications can access, right? And using this application utility was not very convenient. Okay. So because of these drawbacks, I mean, in IMS 12, IMS catalog was introduced. Okay. The IMS catalog, it holds the metadata for the databases, and it's in the program specification block. And it can be accessed by using JDBC drivers, and and it is also made available to different tools and applications. Okay. Now this IMS metadata, it was also available in the XML format, and it was also available to the DLI application in your traditional IMS segment format, hierarchical format. And those can be accessed via GUR call. So this IMS catalog is it was actually it is actually a database, right? We know that it's an IMS HALDP database, which is implemented as a partition hidem with an access method of OSAM, right? And the most important thing was that obviously it is used to store metadata in it, and when this metadata is updated, right, the catalog was also updated to reflect the change. So what advantages offer is basically the data was always current, right? The data is current because the consumption of the data, I mean, it was directly happening from a HALDB database rather than some static files, basically. And another important thing was that, I will take this pen. Another thing important was that these the information in this catalog, it was maintained in different instances using versions. You can IMS catalog also provided a versioning, so you can have multiple versions of your data based upon the limit set by the user. So that was another advantage of using an IMS catalog. So IMS catalog was introduced. It was implemented like another database, a HALDB database, and it was having current and all the metadata information in it, right? That was done in IMS 12. Basically, we have learned that IMS catalog, it's a database, right? So by now we know that the IMS catalog is a HLDB database, a partitioned HIDAM database, full function type of database. And since it is a database, right, it will have everything an IMS database has. That is, it will have some type of hierarchical structure like this, right? So this is an actual structure of an IMS catalog database, right? It has a resource header at the top. This is the root segment, okay? And this header will be there for for each DBD and a PSB. So it has its segment. If you see, it has its segment like a DBD and a PSB. The this DBD segment, that is this database definition segment, it has its child as all the attribute which defines this DBD, and this PSB segment has its child as all the attributes which defines this PSB. So for those who who have coded a DBD or a PSB, they will be able to identify that these are nothing but the macros which we use inside those database database definitions, right? This area is a macro. For example, this data set name is a macro, lchild is a macro, segem is a macro. So how this table is structured is basically there is a resource header at the top which defines if this is for a DBD or a PSB, and then all the information which goes into which we code inside a macro inside a source, it goes into these segments basically. And one thing, so basically a database structure definition can have information like the access method or the randomizer name, right? All the lchild, xdfld, whatever things we code for a database definition. A PSB resource can have information like a PCB or a sensitive segment, sensitive field, and and a DBT cross reference, which I'll quickly talk in few seconds. Another important thing which we can notice here is that these are all color coded, and when we say color coded, it means that these all the segment which are of specific color, let's say this white color segment, right? They all are grouped together into a data set group, DSG. Okay, so all the whites will go into this DSG A. All the segments which are marked in gray will go into this DSG B. Same thing with DSG C and a data set group D, right? And it is grouped it is grouped in a manner that the most accessible ones are grouped together. Let's say this DSG A will have DBD and PSB as the most accessible one, and the least ones like in DSG D, they might be it will have all the blue ones in it, right? And then there is a segment inside PSB, inside PSB, that is DFSCX000, and this is a a DBD cross reference member. Basically, it is used for identifying what this PSB access, what all other DBDs, right? So this, as we have seen, this header segment, it has information about a DBD and a PSB. So it is important to identify what will be the key of this header segment, right? If we closely see this header, resource header, it has a key of, I'm not sure if it's visible, it might be too small, but it has a key of 16 bytes. All right, root key of 16 byte, and the first 8, this is a 16 byte, and the first 8 bytes of this 16 byte, it identifies if it's a DBD or a PSB, right? This is the first 8 bytes. So if it's a PSB, it will be PSB and then 5 blanks, followed by the next 8 byte, which has the PSB name. So in this case, it will be a PSB type of resource, and the name will be P7654321, like this. Okay, so this is about the structure of a catalog database. Okay, all right. So now, and obviously we'll talk more about what is an IMS managed JCB. So with IMS 14 and above, there was an option that the users can optionally enable IMS managed JCB manage, so that your application control blocks can be managed by IMS, okay, for your database and PSBs. So what happens in this is basically the AC application control blocks. It will be stored in IMS directory, and IMS directories are implemented like a PDSE and not a PDS, and we'll talk more about that in slides to come. So what flexibility it offers is that IMS can build, activate, and load ACBs into the memory dynamically from the catalog. Whenever your database and program definitions are created via data definition language. And to enable IMS management, there is a proclived member called DFS DFXXX. And in that you need to enable, you have to say ACB management is catalog and catalog equal to yes. And we'll see that in more details in slides to come. So what is actually a directory data set? A directory is like an ACB live. Directory records have a format much like an ACB live. ACBs in the ACB live. So if you open, we know that directories are stored in PDSE data set as opposed to ACB live, which is in PDS. And if we open an ACB live member and a directory member, same member, and if we view those members, we'll see that all the information is same. Whatever you can see in ACB live is present in a directory member, same equivalent member, right? A directory is always kept in sync with your catalog database. And then there is another data set called BSDA, that is a bootstrap data set, which contains the information about the directory data set, a staging directory data set and the active directory data set. Okay. So basically this, IMS, we'll look into some more details on how data sets, what all data sets are there in a catalog and a directory. So the IMS catalog is a database structure, we know that. And before we load any records inside this IMS catalog, we must define all the partitions to IMS, right? So basically the IMS catalog is composed of two types of object. One is the primary database, which is this DFSCD 000, right? And then it has, these type of data set. It has a primary, index data set, and then list data set. And then it also has 4 type of data set groups, which we have seen in one of the slides earlier, which was color coded, right? It also has a secondary database called DFSCX 000, which is used for holding the cross-referencing information. Okay, when we basically use IMS manage ACBs, we use directories there, and there we find 2 types of general data sets. One is a set of staging directory data sets and an active directory data sets, and the information about staging and active is present in your bootstrap data set. Okay, so all these are different type of data sets involved in a catalog and in a directory. And then we know that an IMS catalog is a database, right? It's a HLDB database. So everything which you do for a database, you need to do it for an IMS catalog as well. So it requires catalog database management. Like you need to run image copy, any type of analysis tool like a pointer checker. You need to run reorgs on it. Now your catalog is an only HLDB database that is not mandatory to define in registered in recon. I mean, it is recommended but not mandatory. So if your catalog database, it is defined to the recons, the utility HLDB or online reorg, non-destructive online reorg, it is supported. But if it is not defined in your recon, then you must be using some other utilities offered by different vendors. And as far as recovery is concerned, yes, I mean, if it is defined in recovery is also supported for an IMS catalog database, right? Image copy, recoveries, and backout. But if it is not defined in the recon, that recovery is very limited, right? For it will be same as for any other non-registered, any other full function database, basically non-registered full function database. So this is just covering the an introductory session. It was just an introductory part, and I'll now request Snehal to talk about the actual migration to IMS catalog and the scenarios involved in it. So Snehal, can you share your screen? I need to stop here.
Yes,
Or,
yes,
yeah.
sure, Aditya. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you are able to see my screen.
Yeah, can.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So, hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to present here at GSC. My name is Nehal Nalage, and I work as a senior software developer at BMC Software. I think it's been around 6 years with BMC now, and as Dom said, my primary focus has been on IMS system administration product areas. Um, okay, so Aditya, as mentioned Aditya earlier, IMS managed ACBs has been a hot topic with the IBM's recent announcement, and I think even you all already know about this by now. Aditya has already given an overview about what IMS managed ACBs are, and basically, I will be talking about the procedures that are required in migrating the managed to the managed ACBs. However, before we delve into the different steps which are required, let's take a look at the various migration scenarios. Okay. So here, the first scenario is enabling the IMS catalog in an existing ACB environment. Okay. Here we are just talking about enabling the catalog, not the IMS managed ACBs. The second one is migrating to my IMS managed ACBs and initializing the IMS catalog. And the third one is migrating to IMS managed ACBs with the IMS catalog already active. For the customers who have already gone through the scenario one and who have their environment set up with the catalog and the ACV libs, I think this scenario three would be of a greater interest for them. Okay. Um, Additionally, in addition to all these scenarios, there are various other factors that we should keep in our mind during this migration. Um, like for example, if you have recently migrated to the new version of the IMS, then you must ensure that your systems are stable before you initiate migration. Okay. If you are running your current environment in a data sharing environment, then it is then it is required for you to set up only single catalog for all your IMSs. However, if you are running in a single, if you are running multiple ACB libs for the multiple IMSs, then you also need to set up the multiple catalogs for each IMS. As because if you are sharing a catalog between multiple IMSs, then you also need to share the IMS directory. Okay, so we need to keep all these other factors also in consideration. Now, let's look at the scenario roadmap. So, this roadmap basically outlines the various steps which are involved in these three scenarios that I have just talked. In the upcoming slides, we will delve into each of this scenario in detail, highlighting the common steps with the slight differences for each scenarios. However, here, if you look at the scenario one and the scenario two, where IMS catalog is not yet initialized, for that you need to first install IMS catalog DBDs and the PSBs in IMS, and also you need to define the catalog to the IMS. Okay. If we take a look at the third scenario, here the IMS is already active, it's initialized, so those steps are not required. However, you might want to take the backup of the existing IMS catalog before you make any changes to that. Okay. The next step is to populate the IMS catalog and create the data sets which are required, and also to create the IMS directories and load them with the initial data. Okay. For the first scenario, depending on the what utility that we use, there are actually couple of utilities which we will be talking in the further slides. So depending on which utility we use, we might want to delete some of the data sets like the bootstrap dataset or the directory datasets, because those datasets are not really required in the non-IMS managed ACB's environment. Okay. Once the population of the catalog is done, then you need to take the image copy of the catalog database. As catalog being a database itself, it's mandatory step as it is for the other databases. Okay. Then you need to also make some necessary changes in the IMS proclib member or your existing utility JCLs before you proceed and restart your IMS to run with the catalog or managed ACBs. So now let's take a look at the first step of the migration, that is install catalog DBDs and the PSB in the IMS. Okay, let's take an example of a IMS system A here. Okay, IMS DBDs and the PSBs, they are shipped as a DBD gen and the PSB gen output in IMS SDSF REST-lib. And you need to copy them in the respective DBD lib and the PSB lib for your IMS. Once they are copied, you need to run the ACB maintenance utility to create the ACB control blocks for these databases and the PSBs. And then you can use the online change or any other equivalent method like a delta reload to activate these PSBs and the DBDs in the IMS. It's not required for you to define the mod blocks for these resources, as IMS takes care of it for you. Okay, if you opt for a different catalog definitions for the each IMS, as we talked earlier, then you need to define an alias for each catalog. And in that case, you need to update your DBD lib using IMS catalog alias name utility. It basically creates the DBDs, a DBD alias with the alias prefix that you set for that IMS. Okay. Optionally, you might also need to increase the size of your storage pools up to the maximum size of the catalog PSB in each pool multiplied by the number of user PSBs that concurrently access the catalog. This step is basically required because when your application program tries to access the catalog for the metadata, okay, and if that is how if the particular setting is done in the proclib, then for every user PSB, IMS dynamically attaches the catalog PSBs. That's why this change is required. Okay, so these are the steps which fall into the install catalog DBDs and the PSB in the IMS. Does any of you have any questions till now? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Basically, these are the DBDs which define the catalog databases, and I'll not talk much on that because Aditya has already covered the structure of each of these DBDs in detail earlier. Now let's take a look at the PSBs, the catalog PSBs. The first one here, that is the DFS CPL00. This PSB can be used for the initial load of a IMS catalog by using the two utilities that I mentioned earlier, the IMS catalog populate utility or the ACB generation and the catalog populate utility. Okay, the second one, DFS CP000, it provides a read access to the IMS catalog and in the IMS catalog populate utility. So it is just for the read access, okay? Or it can be used by the COBOL or other high-level assembler programs for reading the catalog. Then the third one, basically, suppose you have already loaded catalog, initialized catalog, and when you want to make the changes to that, for the update access, this PSB is used. For the PLI programs to read the catalog, DFS CP002 is used, and for the Pascal program, DFS CP003 is used. The rest 2 PSBs they are reserved for the future use. Okay, so the next step is defining the IMS catalog to IMS. The IMS catalog is itself an IMS HALDB database, and like other HALDBs, before loading any data into the catalog, it is required for you to define the HALDB partitions to the IMS. Okay, you can define the catalog with DBRC or without DBRC, as Aditya mentioned earlier, and we will see in a minute how to do that. Okay. After that, you also need to make the changes in the DFS DFXXX member of your IMS proclib. We will also look into those changes. So for registering the catalog with DBRC, you need to use this utility, Database Recovery Control Utility, DSPU RX00. And this is the example of the DBRC commands that you can write for defining the IMS database, sorry, catalog database, its partitions and the secondary indexes. Okay. This is how you basically need to code the names of the IMS catalog databases and the partitions and the index, except if you are using the alias name, then you need to replace this first 4 characters prefix with your alias prefix. Okay, like for example, suppose for IMS1, if you are using the alias prefix for the IMS catalog as IMS1, then this DFSC will be replaced with the IMS1 at all these places. Okay. Yeah. Now, how to define the IMS catalog to IMS without using DBRC? For that, you basically need to create a DFS MDA member to dynamically allocate the catalog partition definition dataset. And these are the system cards that you can see here. Okay. Give me a minute. Yeah. So, right. And once that is done, then you need to create and populate the IMS catalog partition definition dataset with the catalog partition definition dataset utility. So this is the utility. So basically this dataset utility contains the information about the partitions that IMS reads from. Okay. And the next step and the third step that is required for this is to update again the DFS DFXXX proclib member, okay, with the use of unrec catalog parameter. You need to set this parameter to the name of your catalog databases. The same thing here if you are using the alias, again the names would change here.
Okay. Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
If that's all right. When you're doing the can you adjust the partition range when you actually do the definitions, whether it's via the catalog or via DBRC or without DBRC? So can you actually influence the actual partitions?
Yes, basically, I think you can definitely define more than one partition. That is what you are asking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you can. And I think I have one point that I wanted to signify, which would come in the later slides, that you can definitely do that. But sorry, it got muted somehow. Yeah. So in that case, you basically need to define all those partitions manually. They will not be created for you automatically.
That's great. Thanks.
Okay, so this is how you can define your IMS catalog to the IMS without DPRC. And from here, it basically knows what is the name of the IMS catalog databases. I don't know. Okay, it was not moving. Fine. So now let's take a look at what all the other changes that are required to the DFSDF member of the PROCLAB. So if you want to enable the catalog or managed ACBs, then you need to code this section. That is section equals to catalog or section equals to catalog XXX, where this XXX is again a alias prefix. Okay, this section basically includes many parameters, but we will be talking about only few which are important. So let's talk about the first one, that is catalog. So catalog equals to yes or no. This specifies whether the IMS catalog is enabled or disabled. Okay, ACB management equals to ACBlib or catalog. When it is set to ACBlib, it specifies that the active ACBs are managed by your installation in ACBlib dataset. And when it is specified to the catalog, the active ACBs are managed by IMS in the IMS directory dataset of the IMS catalog. Okay, and this is a third one, like the alias name prefix that we want to provide for the IMS, we provide with this parameter. It can be of a 4-character and it can be alphanumeric. Okay, in the next slide, we will see what should be the expected values of these parameters in the different stages of the migration. So, first time, if you are setting IMS catalog with the ACBlib, okay, at that point, you do not have a catalog, so you will also not have this section equals to catalog. So you need to code this section, and catalog equals to N and ACB management equals to ACBlib is expected, as you are still not running with the catalog. Once you have the catalog set up, and if you are running with the IMS catalog and the ACBlib, then you will have a catalog equals to set to yes, and the ACB management will be ACBlib. So even when you are trying to initialize your IMS directory with the populate utility, at that time also you need to have these set to catalog equals to yes and ACBlib only. Once you are done with populating the catalog and the IMS directory, then before enabling that change into the IMS, you need to ensure that you change catalog equals to yes and ACB management equals to catalog. And only then your IMS will be enabled to run with the managed ACBs and catalog. Okay. So any questions till now? Fine.
And just to reiterate, everyone, they can unmute themselves to ask the question if they want to. I'm just emphasizing that because at the start I said ping, but it's much easier to just unmute yourself. Thanks. To ask the question. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. Okay. So, okay, there are a few more changes which are basically required to DFSDF XXS member of a PROCLAB. For managed ACBs, you need the support of the type 2 commands. And sharing catalog among the multiple IMSs, you need SCI, OM, and the RM address spaces. And that's when you also need to configure the common service layer. Okay. If multiple IMS systems are supposed to share the catalog in the data sharing environment, in that case, you need to specify ACB share equals to S in common service layer of the DFSDF member, the section of the DFSDF member. If the multiple IMS systems that will share the catalog are on a different system in the Sysplex data sharing environment, you must specify PDSC sharing extended in the IGDS SMS XX member of the sys1.pamlib for each ZOS system in the Sysplex. That is again because the IMS directories are the PVSE kind of a data sets, as Aditya mentioned earlier. That is why the step is required if they are in the data sharing environment on the different Sysplex. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about the allocation of all these data sets, the catalog database data sets, bootstrap data set, or the IMS directory data sets, Active Directory, or the staging directory data sets. So all these data sets, the allocation is basically optional. Because IMS catalog populate utility can allocate that for you automatically when you populate the catalog for the first time. Okay. However, if you opt to allocate these data sets manually, definitely you cannot allocate the directory datasets manually, that is allocated by the catalog populate utility itself. However, if you want to allocate the other catalog datasets, then you can use the analysis only mode of the populate utility, which provides the storage statistics. And this can be helpful in deciding the storage requirement for those manual allocations. Okay. When catalog populate utility allocates the data sets for you, it basically depends on the two parameters, two things for the space allocation. The first one is the members in the input ACB libraries. So you definitely pass the ACB library from which you need to initialize the catalog, and the number of members in that ACB libraries will be taken into consideration while designing the space that needs to be allocated. Okay, and the another thing is the space alloc parameter in the catalog section of the DFS DFXXX member. So this is another parameter that goes into the catalog section that we haven't talked earlier. Okay, so this is the point here, Dom, that I was talking about earlier. That if if the catalog secondary index has more than a single partition, then you must allocate the partition datasets yourself. So that was, I think, just about the secondary index, not about the catalog. Okay, yeah. So now let's take a look at the utilities that we already talked about, mentioned earlier, for initial load of the IMS catalog and the directory. That is DFS3PU00, IMS catalog populate utility, and DFS3U ACB, the ACB generation and the catalog populate utility. Okay, for the initial load of the catalog, if you want to use the catalog populate utility, then you need to ensure that the managed ACB is set to setup. Okay. You can use any of these PSBs depending on how you want to populate your catalog, whether you want to load it for the first time, or if you want to just update if you are already in the catalog and ACB lib environment. Okay. You can definitely run this utility in the DLI or the BMP mode. You have to know that here we are just talking about the managed ACB is equals to setup for the initial load. However, once your managed ACB is set up, and you can also use this populate utility for populating the changes later also to the databases and the applications. That time you will use managed ACB is equals to stage if you want to stage those members, right? And in that case, you can definitely run this utility in both DL and the BMP mode. However, when you are doing the managed ACB is equals to setup, you should run this utility only in the DLI mode. Okay, and it is same thing is true for the ACB generation utility. This utility is same. The only difference here is that the ACB generation utility, it basically takes the input for the generation of the ACBs like the PSBs and the DBDs. Okay, And it generates the ACVLib, and then it also updates the catalog and the directory in the same step. Okay, it also can use the same PSBs depending on the scenarios that we talked earlier. However, it also requires the system parameter for the ACV generation. Basically, when you populate the IMS catalog in the same step as the generation of the ACV members in the ACV lib, it ensures that your IMS catalog and the directory and your ACB libs are all in sync. They are consistent. Okay, so if you have any of your tools or utilities that you have not yet updated for the managed ACVs, or if you want to keep your ACB libs in sync for any possible fallback scenarios in the future, then I think it's a good idea to use this utility because it ensures that in the one step. Okay. So this is the example of how these JCLs can be coded for both of these utilities. The PALM here, here you can specify the mode. Again, what is the utility? It is the PSB that you want to use. Okay. Here you can specify whether you want to run with the IRLM or not. If you are running with the managed in the data sharing environment, then I think it's mandatory for you to use the IRLM. And the next to it, you need to specify the IRLM ID. Okay. We talked about this earlier, that is managed ACB is equals to setup. Now let's take a look at this other one. Here we actually specify what are the DBDs and the PSBs that we want to build for the ACB generation step. Okay, and if you notice here in the DFS3 PPRM DD card, we specify the same parameters that goes into this utility. So ultimately DFS3 UACB calls DFS3 PU00 once the ACB generation is complete. Okay, so that's about these two utilities that can be used. Yeah, now let's talk about the catalog definition exit, DFS3 CDX0. So what this exit is, this exit basically provides the setting and the attributes of the IMS catalog to the batch applications programs. Okay, like whether you are running with the managed ACBs environment or not, what is the high level qualifier of the data set, all those attributes which are required to read the application and the database control blocks, all those information can be taken from this exits. So this is just an alternative that is available, that can be used instead of reading the DFSDF, DFSDF XXX member of your proclib dataset in the batch JCLs. Okay, so to allow existing offline batch utilities to work in the managed ACBs environment, you have two options. Either you can create this exec, okay, which provides you the information. Basically, I think there are three options. Either you can create this exec, you can point to the correct proclib dataset, which has the correct setting, or you can keep the PSB, DBD, ACB libraries in sync with the active directory and the catalog. So even if the catalogs and the databases and the PSBs are read from the ACB libs instead of directory, they are read the correct version. Okay. Okay, so I think we have covered all the steps which are required for migrating to the managed ACBs. So by now, our catalog is created, it's defined to the IMS, it's populated. IMS directory data sets are created and loaded. And now we are ready to activate the managed ACBs in the IMS. So if your IMS is down, so up, you need to take it down And before you start the IMS, you need to again go back and ensure that these parameters are set in the DFSDF member. Here we definitely recommend you to do the cold start. This recommendation is basically from the R products point of view, where we do see that there can be some pitfalls if you do not start your IMS with the cold start. So this is a recommendation. So that was about migrating to the managed ACB's environment. I'll take a pause here for a moment and see if we have got any questions.
So just remember to unmute yourselves to answer that question if you want.
Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, pitfalls and the fallback recommendations. So whenever you are making changes to your stable environment or performing any kind of a migration, one point that you need to take into consideration is the strategy for the fallbacks that may be required. Okay, so here we will look at the fallbacks again with the two different scenarios. The first one is the falling back from the IMS managed ACBs before resource updates are activated, and falling back from the IMS managed ACBs after resource updates are activated. The first scenario here is basically is little easier, I would say. That is to fall back without having any changes made to the PSB and the DBD resources after the migration. And what are the steps that we need to take for that? Okay, so we can just go back directly to the DFSDF proclib member where we made all those changes. And the only one change, okay, if you want to keep using the catalog, but if you do not want to use the managed ACVs, then you need to make this change that ACB management equals to ACBLF. Next, if you use the IMS catalog definition exit, this is basically for your batch application programs. Okay, here also you need to make the change that now you are not running with the managed ACBs, so that the batch application programs go back and refer to the ACB libs or the DBD libs and the PSB libs. Okay, if necessary, you need to also go and update your any of your JCL references to the ACB lib, DBD lib, and the PSB libs if you have already removed them. Okay. If DBRC was configured to refer to the IMS catalog for the database definitions, then you need to reconfigure it to refer to the DBD lib instead of catalog by using the change.recon command. Okay, with no catalog specified. And I think you are good to go back to the non-managed ACBs environment. With all these changes, just recycle your IMS and restart. Now let's see what are those changes which are required when there are changes that have been made to the PSB and the DBD resources post-migration. Okay. Basically, when you are going back to the non-managed ACBs, now you will be using ACB lib instead of a IMS directory to read the catalog, to read the ACB control blocks, right? So it is very much mandatory for you to ensure that your ACB lib is in sync with the IMS directory. That's why even also I talked about that point earlier. That DFS3U ACB utility, that is the ACB generation and the catalog populate utility, might help you to keep ACB libs and directory dataset in sync in the first place. Okay, but if you do not want to take any chance, then you need to either compare and see if your database directory dataset and the ACB libs are sync, or you can basically regenerate the ACB libs. Okay, build the input statement for the DBD generation, the PSB generation utilities from the IMS catalog by using the DFS3LU00 utility. So this utility basically allows you to do that. Okay, after building the DBD and the PSB library by running the DBD and the PSB generation utilities. So with using this input statements, you have to run the DB gen and the PSB gen. However, here one more point that you need to take into consideration is that if you are falling back also to the previous version of the IMS, then you need to ensure that you are using the correct version of these utilities, DBD gen and the PSB gen utilities when you are doing the gens. Okay. Then again, definitely you need to do the ACB gen, and you need to ensure the same thing if you are falling back to the previous version of the IMS. After this step, now you are sure that your ACB lab is in sync with the IMS directory, and now you have to follow the same steps that we have followed for the earlier scenario, that is updating the DFS-DF member, getting the definitions right in the catalog definition exit, making any necessary changes to the JCLs, or referencing DBD-lib and the PSB libs and the ACB libs, and making the changes to the DBRC definitions. Once everything is done, then you just need to restart your IMS. So that was about the fallback considerations. And this is what I had planned to cover in this session. So the final call for any questions for this part.
So Snell, I've got another question. Just you kind of touched on it with running the utilities, but what do you think is a good strategy for comparing the directory with the your ACB libs? For example, in our shop we've got 4 data sharing partners and individual ACB libs. So we've got 4 HAL DBs for that. And so are there any strategies that, well, I mean, it's open to the floor as well. What do other people do? We do it, well, we have it installed, but we actually rolled it back. So we are in the position where we'll be putting it on soon again. But I'm guessing people have different strategies for doing that comparison between their directory and the ACB lib. Just a question to the floor. What do people do?
So yeah, I think I would also like to know the answers if anyone else has any views on this.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that we've got what we're doing is we do a comparison. We will be doing the comparisons between the ACBs and the directory, and then comparing each. And so we will be running the specific utilities to do that comparison. I think we'll be doing that. I can't remember whether we'll be doing it on a, on a probably a weekly basis, something like that. But that's a question to the floor. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and just share what they do or what they intend to do, if they've thought about it. So has anybody got the catalog on there in their shops?
Anshul says here that they are not allowed to unmute. So Anshul, do you want to talk? Then maybe we can try to unmute you.
Right. I've just done that again because I have actually asked people to unmute. So it seemed to go back on again for some reason.
Yeah, Dom. So we were trying to unmute, but it was not working, at least for me.
Yeah, hopefully that should be okay now.
Yeah. So Dom, we are working closely with some of our big customers who have different kind of environments like. So I think the answer lies in what they are using today in their ACB Live environments. So let's say there is a customer with 4-way IMS data sharing environment. And if today they are using 4 different ACB Lives, then probably for them it's better to consider 4 different catalog databases and 4 different set of directory datasets. But for those customers who are using a single ACB live, it is obviously easier to manage. For them, the consideration is probably using a single catalog and single set of directory. But obviously, IMS supports both, and it's basically more of a particular shop how they are configured today in ACB live environment and where they want to go, because due to some restrictions they were using different ACB lives, as you mentioned, like you have different ACB lives. So yeah, that's what I think is happening, at least with the customers we are working with. If they are using separate ACB lives for separate IMS, they are using multiple catalog databases. And those who are using a single ACB live, they are using a single catalog and single directory datasets.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks for that. Yeah, I'm just conscious. I did, we had mute on for some people there, so apologies for that. But if people want to just share their thoughts about where they are with the catalog and what their thoughts about comparisons are between the ACB and the directory. Does anybody want to share theirs with us?
Hello, everyone. I'm
Hello.
David from Hungary. Just one thing I noticed that during the fallback, the last step before restarting IMS, there is a change recon command with the no catalog specified, and I don't recall that Snehal talked about that we should do any change recon commands during the implementation.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Yeah, I think we talked about defining the catalog to the DBRC. Like there are two ways, whether you can define it with a DBRC or you can define without DBRC. We talked about that step. I think I can just go back to those slides.
Oh, so the initdb and initdbd commands automatically set DBRC, set a recon to catalog state, which can be reverted with the no catalog change recon command.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thanks for the question. Anybody else got any more questions? I'm conscious it's now 10 o'clock in the UK now, so we should be having the next session, thanks now, at 10:30 AM. So it's another half an hour, so we can get part 2 going in half an hour on this same stream 2, room 2. So get yourself a little break and then come back for some more exciting stuff on the catalog in even more detail. And yeah, so
Tom, you got muted, I think.
Dom, you're still on mute.
yeah, sorry, my mic just crashed just then. Apologies. So yeah, so thanks very much so far, and we've got another session at 10:30. So just grab yourself UK time. So just grab yourself just a quick break, and then come back for some more exciting stuff on the catalog part 2, which Snell and Aditya will be doing. So thanks very much for the session. There is actually obviously feedback, so therefore I think there is a obviously send your feedbacks in for this session and any of the other sessions you've got. I think there's a QR code, isn't there? That might be at the end of your other presentation. So but just bear that in mind, everybody. We love your feedback, and we look forward to seeing you at in about half an hour. So Thanks so far for all your participation, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks
Tom.
everyone for joining. Please
Thank
join
you.
the next session.
Yeah, please do. Thanks.